Hi, folks. Welcome to episode 6 of Kitchen Table Politics. I'm your host, Jeremy Massengale, and this is the podcast where we all sit around the kitchen table and discuss political ideas. You know, I started a Republican report card to kind of reflect on how they're doing versus their platform, but unfortunately, they're not really doing anything. So I really don't have anything to discuss this week as far as that goes. So we're going to get straight to the conversation with Geoff Smith, who ran for Congress in the Republican primaries in the 3rd District here in Tennessee last year. Do you like shopping online and supporting political dialogue? Well, Kitchen Table Politics and Amazon.com has partnered up so that you can do both at the same time with no additional cost to you. Here's how it works. Go to ktpolitics.com and click on the Amazon tab. Then shop on Amazon just like you intended. Amazon will give the show a small portion of the proceeds. It's that simple. Again, it doesn't cost you anything extra, so you are supporting the show just by shopping as you normally would. Now please enjoy the rest of the show. All right, with us today is Geoff Smith. Geoff ran in the primary for the Republican ticket in the 3rd Congressional District last year, and he has been gracious enough to join us today and tell us a little bit about that experience and a little bit of why he believes what he believes. Geoff, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, no, thank you for the invite. I really, truly appreciate it.
Before we get into what made you run in the first place, I'd really like to know about the process of becoming a candidate for the Republican ticket. So you decided to run for Congress.
Yes.
Then what?
Well, when I first decided to run, you have to get a petition. And when you get the petition, me and my dad filled it out. My dad has a lot of contacts where I'm originally from in Athens, Tennessee. We filled it out in probably a day. You send it into the local election office, you send it to the state, and you send it to the Republicans in Nashville. Well, everything went fine. Everything was processed. I got a letter back from the Secretary of State's office Secretary of Elections office, saying you're good, everything's fine. And then the date comes up, and I'm not on the ballot. And I'm thinking, what in the world just happened? Well, come to find out, the Republican Party misplaced my petition that I gave them. And they told me they'd never got it, and I was a big fraud, and let me have it and everything. Well, I told them, I said, all right, then, well, I'll see you in court. And they said, well, what evidence do you have? You had to prove that we have it. I said, I have a hand receipt where you signed for it. And 5 minutes later, Trey Hargett's office was calling me saying, hey, the Republican Party found your petition. You're going to be on the ballot.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That's why they roll around here. So, but actually getting all the stuff together is not as daunting as you would think. And that's one thing that I really want to push on people. You're not hopeless. You're not helpless. If you have a voice, and whether you have the finances or whether or not you have the education or the wherewithal or even the personal background to be a bad or a good candidate, if someone that represents you votes for something you do not like, you can step up and put your name on that ballot and say, hey, I might not be the perfect candidate. I might not have all the political connections like some of these bigwigs. I might not have the money to run, but I'm not going to sit back and do nothing and let you run this country into the ground.
Was there a fee or anything like that involved in filing that?
None at all. It's actually very easy and very cheap to run for U.S. House. Okay. Now, the Senate, different beast. Governor's kind of a different beast, but running for the U.S. House, our founders have set it up so it's the easiest one to run for. It's up for every 2 years for re-election. We've got guys in there like John Duncan, and he's not a bad representative at all, but him and his dad have held a death grip on the 2nd District for 50 years now. And the thing about that is our founders never ever meant for that to happen. They meant to have high turnover in the House of Representatives.
So you decided to run, and you filed your petition, got everything ready. What was it that made you decide, hey, I need to step up and run for office?
Well, I had gotten out of the service, and I had just finished my master's degree back in 2015, and I was working for a local company that I loved to work for. And everything in my life was absolutely perfect. And I was getting in my car to go back from lunch one day, and it was around, I think, December 15th or December 16th of 2015. I'm driving to work, and I'm listening to Rush Limbaugh on the radio. And he says, well, guys, you know, your Republican Congress just backstabbed you. They fully funded Planned Parenthood. They fully funded 300,000 foreign IT workers come over here and take away IT jobs from Americans. They fully funded 10,000 Syrian refugees to come to this country. And they fully funded Obamacare. He said that's what they're doing in this omnibus bill of 2016. That's what it was. And I told my friend, I talked politics with too, and I said, you know, Fleischman's backstabbed us a bunch of times, especially on national security kind of issues, and he's backstabbed us on issues pertaining to our privacy, a lot pertaining to our privacy, and all kinds of small little minutes. I said, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have voted for the omnibus bill. And come to find out, he was the only Tennessee representative to vote for it. Republican representative, excuse me.
So it was really about the budget and
the omnibus bill.
The omnibus bill. Okay.
He's known for being the number one spender in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what he's known for. And National Right to Life Foundation. I mean, National Right to Life gives him 100% rating, and he's voted to fund Planned Parenthood. And that was one of the major reasons I got in the race. My dad, when he was campaigning for me down in Chattanooga the day of the election, the girl who runs the Young Republicans in Hamilton County, my dad told her, hey, you know, he supports this and this and this, and she said no. He has a better voting record on abortion than anyone else in Congress. And my dad was just baffled about how ignorant people really are, people who are supposed to be in politics. It's just astounding the massive ignorance, but it's because of organizations like National Right to Life. They exist to protect Republicans. So Republicans can go off and make all these deals selling out all their values, and then National Right to Life will protect them. If you go look at their ratings, every single Republican in National Right to Life has 100%, and the Democrats have all 0. Now, Democrats do support abortion. Democrats do support all kinds of things. I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying, I mean, if you had a Democrat that voted against the omnibus bill of 2016 for whatever reason, I don't know if there was any that did, they should have 2% ranking.
Right.
Fleischman should have at least a 99% ranking because that's a bill that funds Planned Parenthood. And somebody really should take them to court and sue them for false advertising. And I think some of these Republicans that run and say, hey, I'm completely against this or that, and they're just lying to us, they need to be tried for that. I mean, look at Don Sundquist. I'll never support the state income tax. And then he gets in there and supports it. I mean, if you go off and you tell your constituents something different than what you campaigned on, you either need kicked out of office or sued for false advertising. You false advertised.
Recently, I myself agree with you on the omnibus bill and any other budget that's come out of Congress for the last 20 years.
Exactly. They're
terrible.
Yeah.
In the first episode of this podcast, I started a Republican report card. I love standing for what the Republicans believe in on their platform.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they don't reflect it in Congress.
No.
Their platform is completely ignored. So in my first episode of this podcast, I started my Republican report card solely based on what did they do versus their platform.
Yeah.
All right. And the first episode, they got an F.
Yeah. Senator
Rand Paul talked about the budget. This it's not a bill, but a resolution was passed in the Senate and the House a few weeks ago that the object was to get rid of Obamacare. But in the process, they said they could raise the debt by $10 trillion over the next 10 years. And only 14 Republicans in the Senate voted against that resolution. That is not what their platform says. Their platform says a balanced budget and to cut spending. I don't know how they can possibly say anything different. I used the analogy in the first episode of the podcast that said they wanted to cut down the tree of Obamacare by burning down the forest with our debt.
That's a perfect analogy. The problem that I had in the primary that a lot of people don't understand is incumbent worship. I would go speak at different events that Chuck Fleischman would speak at, and I would tell people how I'd say, hey, listen, if he was as conservative as he says he is, you would not know my name, which probably some of them probably didn't know my name well anyway. But in saying that, though, people worship incumbents. Down in a place called Sweetwater, Tennessee, the Monroe County Republicans there are very pro-Fleischman, very pro-Fleischman. I found out he was speaking in a place literally, I mean, probably a mile away from where my mother works. And I used to work at a hospital. And I thought, oh no, buddy boy, you're not gonna go in my backyard and try to get votes. So I went to some people that live over there and put my signs everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so when he drove in, he had to see my sign. So he drives in, sees my sign, and there's probably literally 300, 500 people at this event. And I put such pressure on the Republican chair there, he couldn't turn me down speaking. So after Fleischman spoke, he got a big round of applause, and I went up to speak. And I told some of the people some of the things. I mean, I literally verbatim read his voting record. And, I mean, people don't understand. And I did this at the Pachyderm down in Hamilton County, too. People don't understand these little tiny amendments he'll vote for. He was running lies about how he had opened 3 VA clinics in Tennessee. Those are actually flat-out lies. In Minden County, where we have one, the county pushed and pushed and pushed to get that. Didn't have anything to do with Congress at all. He was up there talking about all these veterans issues, and the reason he talked about veterans issues was I was a veteran. He was running against a veteran. And when he left, I took some people down in the Pachyderm in Hamilton County too. I said, well, he like this past week, he voted for an amendment that cut voucher programs for new basic training soldiers to have running shoes. But yeah, he's supposed to be pro-veteran. He also, that same week, there was an amendment to lower the amount of money we give Pakistan from $900 million to $700 million. It was the Buck amendment. I don't know if you're familiar with Buck. He's pretty conservative. He voted against that. So we can send, in Fleischman's opinion, we can send millions of dollars to Pakistan, but we can't give poor basic trained soldiers running shoes. When I was going back to Sweetwater, though, when I was talking to the Monroe County Republicans, they literally did not care anything I told them. I don't know whether they didn't believe me or what, but when you're reading House resolutions to them and you're telling them the stuff he's done, all they understand is he's a Republican, so he must be for this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. They're not willing to do the research or just listen when they're being even spoon-fed by an opponent what he's voted for. And I went into my platform about how I'm for term limits in Congress. We have to have them. I'm for limiting government. I'm for cutting spending. Just simple stuff. They didn't care. They worshipped the ground Fleischman walked on. They worshipped, and especially in Hamilton County, they worship the ground Corker walks on. And up in Oak Ridge, they love Lamar Alexander. On Conservative Review, Lamar Alexander has such low conservative numbers. He's lower than the 2 Democrats that represent Tennessee. I mean, and these guys are Republicans. It's false advertising. They shouldn't even be allowed to be on the ballot.
A few weeks ago, Representative Mulvaney went before Congress to be confirmed as head of the budget here in the United States. Now, as a veteran, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and let's talk about someone who you yourself ran on because of the budget, but you're also a veteran, so you have Army experience. Is that right?
Army infantry,
Army infantry. Mulvaney was grilled by Senator McCain about wanting to cut defense spending. All right. Yeah. So if we're going to have a balanced budget, do we have to cut defense spending?
Yes. I mean, you have to cut everywhere. When I was in the service, we had all kinds of stuff we never used. I don't know which representative it is, but in Congress, what they'll do is, I wish I could remember, but there's a congressman or a congresswoman who in their district, they make M1 Abrams tanks. And they get money for their district. They get kickbacks, you name it, and get voted in. Just like in the omnibus bill when Chuck Fleischman sold us out in every conservative value known to man so he could get $29 million for the Chickamauga Dam. Whoever this was, they're taking M1 Abrams tanks, and instead of sending them to the Army, they're putting them in storage. I mean, that's where you cut spending. A lot of people say, well, do you cut over here at this, you shut down this Army base? No, I'll tell you who you shut down. You shut down your congressman. Their spending money doesn't even go to the military. I mean, there's a lot of dirty stuff. I mean, these bills, they need stuff. I mean, the states need to get together and have a convention saying, hey, you can't have bills longer than 10 pages, 12-size font, and it has to be just the front side. I mean, the states are going to have to start holding the federal government accountable because they're literally using our tax dollars to buy re-elections with.
That's true. And I think that's a really good topic to bring up is the length of these bills. I've spoken to 2 different chief of staffs for 2 different congressmen within the last 3 or 4 months, and both of them said the same thing. Our congressmen don't even read the bills they vote for.
They don't. It's impossible. Before the omnibus bill was passed, another bill that should have went along with it was the highway bailout bill. And man, in that highway bailout bill, there was stuff in there that didn't pertain at all to the highways. And when I was running for election, I would go around hitting these different issues. I've kind of forgotten them over time because I've been busy with stuff. But the highway bailout bill should have been with the omnibus. But both of them together was just so much money. They won't have them together. But I mean, there was, the beef and potatoes, the bill was the highway, but everything else was going to other things. It's unreal what they're doing to us.
Right.
I mean, the lack of patriotism's astonishing. You can tell that they're in somebody's pocketbook,
Right. If you look at the state of Tennessee, Tennessee has in its state constitution that the budget has to be balanced.
Yeah.
All right. As of right now, the state of Tennessee has a surplus of about $2 billion. Mm-hmm. Okay. Our people are not dying in the streets. Our people have roads to drive on.
Mm-hmm.
We
Good
have
roads.
Good roads.
Good roads.
All of our road projects are paid for in cash. We don't borrow money to build roads, and we have good roads. We have good schools.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah, it not only is it possible, but there's a new spending bill that Haslam wants to put out, and I'm sure you've heard about it.
Yes.
The gas tax. And my representatives, Bell and Fogarty. Bell's a representative, and Bell's a state senator, and Fogarty's a representative where I live. And they're both saying, well, I'm so glad this is revenue neutral. So they're trying to say they're not really raising our taxes. Truth is, it's not revenue neutral. What they're saying the money will bring in, it's about double. And then the J Pilot thing that Haslam owns, the collecting the tax on that's going to give him a little bit of a kickback. You got to watch these characters. They don't care to lie to you and lie to you and lie to you. We have $2 billion in surplus the last 2 years, and they're trying to raise our taxes. The big thing is you have these guys, though, they're saying that they're going to decrease food by 1.5%, but they're increasing the amount of sales on diesel by 70%. That's going to totally blow out anything they're doing. Food costs are going to go way up over this, and it's just going to be on groceries, not going to be on food you go out and eat. So you're being lied to, hands down. But I'll tell you something else about this. When you have politicians who their salary is $19,000 a year, they work half a year, and some of these guys aren't retired, but I know representatives that spent thousands and thousands of dollars, even gave out free ice cream after he won a primary while he was trying to win a general against an independent nobody knew about. And you're making $19,000 a year. Why would you go that far out to keep a state rep seat? There's stuff going on that they don't want to tell you. Because when you're making $19,000 a year and you're living high off the hog, somebody's giving you money. And when you go lie to all your constituents saying we're not really raising your taxes when you are, there's something. I guess you could say there's something rotten in Denmark.
Absolutely. The corruption is very obvious at a state and especially at a national level.
It's even worse on national.
Even worse at the national level. They go in as a representative, with a certain net worth.
Yeah.
And every one of them comes out a millionaire.
Well, the guy that I ran against, his son's a lobbyist. His son's now a registered lobbyist. Had he been a senator instead of representative, it'd been illegal. Mm-hmm. I mean, I spoke in Cleveland, even though Cleveland's not part of the district. There's the guy who runs the Tea Party in Hamilton County, Mark West. He now owns land and property in Cleveland. Well, he had a big, huge political shindig, and he did not invite me. I saw it, and I thought, wow, that'd be a great opportunity to go get votes. So I show up. Lo and behold, Chuck Fleischman's speaking there. I was like, oh, very nice. Well, they have this board up, and it says 5-minute stump speech, and then there's a thing, it says debate. So I put my name on both of them. Well, poor old Mark West's wife came over to me and says, well, who you plan on debating? I said, who else do you think? Chuck Fleischman. Because I had sent his office a letter wanting a debate, and he declined me. Literally everywhere I went, he would run away from me. Mm-hmm. He wasn't man enough to face me. And for all intents and purposes, his voting record's so terrible. I wouldn't face me either, But I wasn't going to hurt him anyway. I just wanted to tell him, hey, the people of the 3rd District have a right to know how their congressman votes. They have a right to know the truth. Please just give me a televised debate. If he had done that, I would not have put up one sign. I would not have done anything else. The people of the 3rd District have a right to know what their government's doing to them. And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't even communicate with me. He wouldn't have anything to do with me. All the Republican chairmen in the 3rd District would not let me speak at their Reagan Day, Lincoln Day dinners. But for somebody who got over 30,000 votes like Fleischman did in that primary, it's astonishing from Scott County to Hamilton County how many people hate that man. I would talk to radio stations, and they'd say, we'd love to have you on, but we're not going to have you on because it's kind of, we want to be equal about it. And Fleischman will never be on my radio station. I went to, actually it was Scott County, one of them, and the guy there was a Democrat, but he liked what I was doing because a lot of people like the honesty. And that's one of the things that got Weston Watt beat in 2014. You know, Weston had every political connection known to man. Mm-hmm. Weston had all the money you need to run for Congress. But the one thing Weston had that made him lose was he was too honest about who he was. Fleischman's every bit the liberal that Weston was, if not more. But Fleischman, he took the conservative bent and tried to act like a conservative. He tried to lie to conservatives, whereas Weston just told people how he really felt. And even though I don't agree with Weston on everything, I do respect him for being transparent with people of the 3rd District. Mm-hmm. You know, I really, really do. Because Fleischman, his opponent, never was.
We've been a little rough on the Republican Party for the last few minutes, and it's well-deserved.
Yeah.
Because you and I both, I believe, are pretty principled, and we are very...
strict constitutionalists.
Absolutely. Yeah. One problem I see, and one of the reasons why I started this podcast is I like new ideas.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
I like talking to people from both sides and seeing why they believe what they believe. So I'm going to take a little bit different tact right now and throw you a little curveball.
Let's do it.
The Democrats and the liberals, rightly so sometimes, say that Republicans are very cold. Mm-hmm. They don't care about people, and they don't understand how people feel. Mm-hmm. All right. Can you tell the audience that that's not true, that that's not our message, and give some examples of that?
First and foremost, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I personally believe from a moral and individual standpoint that everything you earn and as much as you can give, you ought to give to help the poor. I believe you should go out of your way to help everybody you can, do everything you can to help people. And but I just don't believe that someone should hold a gun to your head and tell you to do it. And that's the differences between Democrats and supposed to be Republicans. That our God is not government. I believe in helping the poor. I believe in helping the needy. I believe in helping your brother. I mean, I believe in sending money overseas by the buku. I believe in doing everything possible. But I just don't believe that government should point a gun at you and say, if you do not help these people, you're going to jail and you're losing everything you have. I mean, some of the problems overseas, they're implementing Democrat ideas. You go to Africa, everybody's starving. Well, why? Well, they don't have property rights in some of those countries. Mm-hmm. How are you ever going to have capitalism, or how are you ever going to buy and sell goods when no one owns the land? You have to have property rights. It's an essential, basic principle of a stable civilization. The real difference that should be between conservatives and liberals is we should all be shooting for the higher goal of looking at heavenly things and looking to help our brothers and our sisters. But the big difference is not using government as a medium to do those things.
I had Father Kevin Rigdon, who's a priest here in town, on as a guest last week, and we discussed this a little bit. He made a statement that I agree with totally. Yeah. Government has to help the poor right now because no one else is doing it.
Well, no one else is doing it because government's been doing it. I mean, why would I go to my grandparents' house who are on Social Security right now, give them half of what I earn to keep them up when Social Security's already keeping them up? My grandfather can't walk. My grandmother can barely get around. I live right next to them. I do everything I can to help them. But why am I going to go over and help them financially when I'm already paying it with my taxes? And they're doing pretty well because of Social Security. I mean, it's not very much, but when you live in Athens, Tennessee, you know, it's not so bad because the cost of living is low. So, I mean, we've been put in a position to not help our families. I mean, Social Security, for all intents and purposes, is almost like an Anglo tax because, you know, Anglo-Saxons, British peoples like to move away from their loved ones. They like to do this. They like to do that. Whereas, you know, in Latino cultures, they stay together. Their family unit stays together. Our culture doesn't. Our culture embraces freedom and everything else. It's almost like a cultural Social Security is almost like a cultural tax. Mm-hmm. So we don't take care of our loved ones. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when you're being forced to pay you're getting nickel and dime, 9%. On everything you buy, you pay a 39% corporate tax. I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but that's one reason the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare hasn't succeeded and will never succeed, is because the cardinal rule of taxation. You never, ever directly tax the American people. And when you have poor people who can't afford insurance, can see that their money is being taken directly out of their account, they're going to rebel. And they have rebelled, and we've seen 1,000 seats or 1,400 seats in government switch from governorships to representatives to go to the Republican Party because the people at the pitchforks have rebelled. Whereas the corporate tax, when they raise the corporate tax, the little guy goes over and pats the politician on the back and says, "Oh, thank you for punishing those big corporations." And all the corporations do is raise their prices, and the little guy gets hit in the taxation. I mean, the cardinal rule of taxation is you never ever let the people know you're taxing them. And, if you're in year 1900, college was affordable. You could help your mom and dad and your grandparents and have 8 kids, and you could afford it. Government wasn't involved in anything. Everything was perfect for all intents and purposes. As far as man can be perfect, 1900, America and Great Britain, 1898, America and Great Britain is about as close as perfection as you'll ever get on this earth. And people did suffer. People suffer under capitalism. But under socialism, everybody suffers. A few suffer under capitalism because a few people won't work. A few people is going to do drugs and be lazy. That's human nature. The majority of people, they do really well. But under socialism or any kind of mixed economy, it hurts everyone.
I think because of the message that gets put out there, Republicans don't care about people, which obviously you and I both agree that that's not true. We do care very much about people, but our messaging is terrible. That's the truth. It's just terrible.
Well, the Democrats own, or the left-wing thinkers, I guess you could say, they own education. They own the media. I mean, we're getting beat everywhere there is to get beat. The devil, spirit of the air, as the Bible calls it, he's got a big megaphone, And when you're in a position to where you are suffering, you look for somebody to help you. Democrats always do better when the economy's bad. Always. They do everything they can to destroy the economy so more people will be dependent on them for votes. And it's a sad truth. Inner cities all over the United States is just destroyed. Democrat philosophies and mindsets have destroyed our inner cities.
I agree. If you look at history, in 1917, people might have considered socialism as a good idea because no one had ever done it before.
Yeah.
But it's just been proven over and over over in Russia, in China, in Cuba, now in Venezuela, who is falling apart. Socialism does not work. And to continue to try socialism, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. I can understand people looking at corporations and calling them greedy. I understand that argument. But the truth is, without those corporations, without the rich investing in companies, without the rich investing in the stock market and things, people aren't going to have jobs. You have to have that for the middle and the lower class to prosper.
Well, the people don't understand either that these big evil corporations or people looking to make money, the system will hold them accountable. When it snows and people can't get out and do stuff, in places like where I used to live in New York when I was in the service, they have laws up there where you can't price gouge. Then you go to the store and you go buy batteries because you need a flashlight or some milk. It's all gone because somebody went in there and bought it all out because they're not allowed to price gouge. Whereas in Florida, hurricane hits Florida, they start price gouging on gasoline. They start price gouging on milk and batteries. Everybody has the resources there. Capitalism works if they'll let it work. And people say, well, it's so evil and terrible. I couldn't afford to get that milk. Yeah, but you know what? Because you were able to buy 5 milks, 4 more families were able to have that. When a government has like the opposite of the Midas touch, everything they touch turns to ruin. If they just left everything alone, we'd be fine. And the bad thing is, if you live in a city like we're in right now, Cleveland, you almost have 4 levels of tyranny. Cleveland city government, Bradley County, state of Tennessee, the federal government, and then we even pay money to the UN. I mean, there's always another level of tyranny looking to get us, and it's all we're going to help you, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Take Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe used to be called Rhodesia. It's a perfect example of government trying to help people. They had runaway inflation in Zimbabwe, printed too much money. So you know what they did? They put price controls on everything. Well, then there was nothing. Once they put up price control and stuff, the market couldn't afford it. And the market is, once you put it in motion, it's kind of like shooting a gun. Once you pull that trigger, you can't get it back. When you print so much money and the market adjusts for all the inflation, you can't get that bullet back. When you go off and put a tariff on something coming from China, and then the market reacts and you didn't see how that would react, people get hurt. It seems like everything the government does, it hurts people. It really, really does. And it might help one sector, but it'll hurt a whole lot more. I mean, and I had somebody tell me a situation we were having somewhere. I don't want to throw anybody on the bus, but they were saying, you know, people didn't think out this bill before they did it. Well, I mean, you can't. When the market reacts, you can't take that back. You know,
right?
It's just like pulling the trigger on a gun. Once you do it, you can't take it back.
Right.
The market's that way.
Right.
The Japanese almost wrote a book and on how to draw back inflation in the 70s. You know, they printed way too much money in the 60s, and then instead of going cold turkey, they just started printing a little less every year and drew back some inflation. I mean, stuff like that. But it's just so hard to know all the principles of civics and economics, and then what works and what doesn't work in government, and try to educate hundreds of thousands of people on stuff that they really don't care about. People care about the simple things in life.
Yeah.
They don't care about politics. And then you have some smooth talker like Bob Corker who says, "Oh, look at me! I can run a successful business." Well, you're a terrible politician, and you've lied to all your constituents about stuff you support. I know for a fact that Bob Corker is a Democrat. I know for a fact he is. Not just how he's voted, but how he's gotten other Democrats to run for representative in different areas, and he's told them to run as a Republican. I know that for a fact. I found out that out in the campaign trail. Bob Corker is the biggest liar in Washington. He is openly a Democrat, and he runs as a Republican because he lives in Tennessee.
I hope that the voters of Tennessee and any other district can take a close look at the representatives. I hate it that a lot of people don't pay attention to what their representatives and senators vote on or how they vote. I hope that podcasts and others like this one can spread the word a little bit, talk about what's going on in Congress. There's a great podcast. It's called Congressional Dish. I've mentioned it before here on the podcast, that discusses what's going on in Congress.
Yeah.
Jennifer Briney, who runs that podcast, she has a very different outlook on life than I do. Yeah. But that's okay, because she does a really good job of at least informing the people what's going on. Yeah. And whether she interprets it the same way I do or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
I like the fact that there are alternative forms of media out there now, that people don't have to watch the news. They can have podcasts like this and Congressional Dish and many, many others that discuss what's going on in Congress. Yeah. And maybe people don't have to pay attention to Congress as much. They can just listen to us and we can inform them.
Yeah. I mean, and the bad thing about politics too is, my grandfather was a Democrat, so I'm going to be a Democrat. Or people judge me on this or that. You need to be, a lot of people need to start being more open-minded about politics. A political party isn't religious. Because your grandfather was a Democrat doesn't mean you have to be a Democrat because he was a Methodist, or you're a Methodist. I mean, it's not like that. The parties have changed. Democrats used to be a lot more conservative than they are now. You won't believe the Democrats that I spoke to that I told them, hey, I'm highly conservative, but I know you don't like Fleischman. At least give me a chance in the primary. And I'll talk to them about politics. Well, they were against abortion. They were against same-sex marriage. They were for all kinds of conservative ideals. But because Mommy and Daddy were Democrat, they vote Democrat too. Well, they're out to help the poor people. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest lie ever perpetrated on the American people. Yeah. The Democrats don't care anymore about the poor, and they care about anything. They care about votes. And they'll sell out their country. They'll spin this drive for votes. They don't care about anything but getting votes and staying in power. And it's sad to say a lot of Republicans have taken up that mantra too. I mean, that's why I ran against Fleischman, obviously.
Right.
I mean, So
it's very well said. I have a challenge for my listeners. Start looking at results and not intent.
yeah,
If you can have good intentions all day long, but if you're not getting the results that you want, then you need to do something different.
yeah,
If you voted Democrat all your life and your life has not improved, then you need to vote Republican.
Yeah.
And the vice versa. If the Republican
Yeah.
isn't doing what you want, either change him in the primary
Yeah.
or vote for the Democrat next or Libertarian or someone else.
Tell you something else that I saw in the election. A lot of people would tell me, well, I don't vote in primaries. I just vote in general elections because I guess primary to them, it's a fight amongst brothers. I'm telling you, a primary vote is a lot more important and you get a lot more bang for your buck because when you have 500,000 people vote in a general election and you have 30 vote in a primary, I mean, you do the math, you're getting 10 times as much voting power voting in a primary than you ever will in a general election. I mean, voting in primaries, you really have a strong voice. If I had $40,000 to put in, I mean, let's just be, if I had $40,000 to put in TV in that last election, man, I might could have blown away Fleischman. I didn't have it. I got in the race too late. I knew there wouldn't be any kind of significant money raising, you know. But Fleischman was very vulnerable last election. And when I ran, there was a guy from Georgia that was allowed to be on the ballot. I don't know if people realize this, but there was a guy, I forget his last name, his first name was Allen. So you had Chuck Fleischman, Alan Levine, that was it, and then me. Alan Levine runs for Congress all over the whole country. He lives in Georgia. He ran for Congress in the 3rd district, took away 3,000 votes from me. It was I don't want the Chuck Fleischman vote, so I'm voting for the next person. And that should be highly illegal. I think the Constitution says you have to live in the state in which you run. And he's able to make the argument, well, it's not a real election, it's a primary. And that's the biggest joke in the world. And I've talked to my state senator about it. They don't care. They don't care. You know, if you stand up to the Republican establishment, from there on out, you're a black sheep, you're an outcast, and anything you tell them after that, it doesn't matter. I mean, we literally had somebody who ran against us, me and Fleischman, in the 3rd district, who was actively living in Georgia and didn't even hide it. His campaign address was in Georgia. I mean, that's highly illegal, and they're letting him do it. They're letting him do it. And I think, and I will call Fleischman now. I think he had him do it on purpose. I mean, flat out, I think he was scared Weston would run again, and it would be him and Weston, and he had to have somebody take away the votes. So what would be better than putting somebody who's alphabetically between him and Weston? And I think that's what he did. And I can't prove it, but it's an allegation I'll be proud to make because I really do believe he did that. Let's
go back to Weston Wamp just a moment. Okay. And it kind of ties into the other things we've been talking about. Weston came under some criticism for actually reaching out to the African American communities and minority communities.
Yeah.
That's what we should be doing.
I mean, of course.
It's no wonder that the African American community feels like we don't care about them.
Yeah.
Because when one of us does reach out, that person comes under criticism.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I'll go back to that. But I drove to Knoxville and did an 1.5 long interviews with Knoxville News Sentinel. They never printed a thing that I said. They said I wasn't available for comment when they did write something about me. Oak Ridge Today, same thing. The only news agency that gave me a real chance was the Cleveland Daily Banner, and it was outside the district. Times Free Press, they totally fabricated what I told them. I told them one thing. I said, I would be a bull in the china shop if you elected me to Congress, because I'd go in there and raise so much heck. We could do things for the East Tennessee, and I could still be conservative. They printed that I said that Chuck Fleischman was a bull in a china shop.
Wow.
Chuck Fleischman's more like a chihuahua or something in the china shop. But in saying that, though, Weston, when he reaches out to the black community, I told the Times Free Press, I said, they were asking racial issues and stuff. I said, no one's done more to hurt the black community than Chuck Fleischman. When you vote to fund Planned Parenthood, you're boarding hundreds of thousands of African Americans, and they wouldn't run it. And when I put my big signs up in Chattanooga and I said, Chuck used your tax dollars to fund abortion, they ran a hit piece on me on Channel 9 News saying that was not true and all this stuff. And I told Channel 9 News, I said, why don't you go report that guy Rick Tyler who put a sign up saying Make America White Again? I said, why don't you go report that I said I have a lot of disdain for that signage, but hey, it's just words. Chuck Fleischman has actively had a part in aborting hundreds of thousands of African Americans. He's the real racist. So, when you reach out to the black community, I thought about, even though Black Lives Matter's far left organization, I almost contacted them during that election and marched with them on the abortion issue, but I thought they wouldn't go for it, so that's why I didn't.
Right.
I think Weston reaching out to the people he did was wonderful, and especially in Chattanooga. And I have a great friend of mine, and I don't care to use his name, Julius Porter. He's an African American who's a police officer down in Cleveland. I graduated from him at UTC in 2010. A lifelong Democrat. All his values match up with conservatism. He started going to the Young Republicans party at UTC. Girl there said, "Listen, just give us one session with you. Let us sit down and talk with you." He's voted Republican ever since. Mm-hmm. I mean, with the Christian men that are in our African American community, they're diehard conservatives. But there's a stigma with being a Republican and being black. And it's a stigma we have to wipe away. What Weston did was very admirable.
I completely agree. This podcast is not about personalities or people. It's about ideas. So this is not an endorsement one way or the other of our current president. Yeah. Even though I'm very happy with any time that he moves towards conservative ideas, or I wasn't always happy with the rhetoric that he used.
Yes.
But one thing I was very excited about was to see him actually go into African American communities. Yeah. He was able to, he was willing not to listen to anybody else around him, just like Weston Wamp was. Yeah. I applaud that, and I think we need to do it more and more and more. Yeah. And you've seen these pictures on Facebook, I'm sure, widest picture ever, when you talk about the Republican convention or boardrooms or whatever. I would very much like to change that. Yeah. To me personally, the African American community, the Latino community, please come to our meetings. Yeah. Please invite speakers to come talk to you and just listen to and hear what you have to say. Yeah.
If anything, let's get together on the abortion issue. Right. Because there are hundreds of thousands, millions of African Americans that don't support abortion, and they go vote Democrat every year. At least have them put the pressure on the people who do represent them to fight against those kinds of social issues that they don't support. Mm-hmm. They're very, you go in some of these black churches, they love the Lord with all their heart and soul. You just go watch them worship the Lord. It's inspiring, and maybe if they won't come to the Republican side, make the Democrats more conservative.
Right.
I don't care about political party. I care about the Lord and conservatism. But in saying that, though, reaching out to the African American community, we have a representative in the 3rd District that he doesn't reach out to anybody who might even raise their eyebrows and question him. I told the chairman of the Republican Party in Hamilton County, I gave him my phone number, and I said, "You tell Chuck, you give," because he just got done talking to him on the phone. I said, "You tell Chuck Fleischman to call this number and to talk to me man on man about his voting record, and have him explain himself to me about why he did what he did, and I will not run against him. I will not drive all over this whole 3rd District, letting everybody know everything that he's voted for, and I know a lot about what he's voted for. You tell him to be a man and call me, and let's talk this out like men before I embarrass him in front of everybody." And he wouldn't do it. So when he refuses to reach out to Latinos, when he refuses to reach out to a African American community, he won't reach out to anybody who might even ask him a question. And that's unfortunate that the system that keeps him in power isn't willing to even be questioned. It's very sad. Selling $1,000, $2,000 plates in Washington just to eat with the representative, and it's not East Tennesseans going to these dinners. He represents Oak Ridge. Chuck Fleischman does. Everybody knows that Nevada competes with East Tennessee with that energy money. So why would a representative be getting money from Nevada? He gets plenty of money from Nevada, and God knows how much he gets in his super PAC from Nevada. Why are they interested in giving an East Tennessee congressman who should be fighting for energy money for his campaign?
It's a good question. Maybe one day we'll find out the answer.
Oh, I know the answer. He's has his hand in the honey pot. Just nobody's ever called him out on it.
Well, Geoff, thank you so much for being with us. To sum up your thoughts and feelings, you want to give just a quick appraisal of where you think the Republican Party is right now?
Yeah. The Republican Party, contrary to what everybody says about populism with Trump, we are making bigger strides than I ever thought we would again. Under Bush and what would have been a McCain administration and then a Romney administration, the one thing Trump is doing is he's being conservative in a lot of ways. And I was a huge Ted Cruz fan, the primary. Cruz is a real, true constitutional conservative. And I'm glad to see Trump open up the Keystone Pipeline, the Dakota Pipeline, looking at some really good Supreme Court justice nominees from what I'm hearing. He's actually keeping some promises, and Bush was scared of the media. Trump calls them fake news. It's good to have a line in there. Now, I'm not saying everything he's going to do is perfect. He's already said he wants to keep pre-existing conditions, the Obamacare reform, the Affordable Care Act reform. He wants to keep people on the parents' insurance under 26. That all raises premiums. That's why we're all mad about Obamacare. I mean, what's he want to do? Just turn around and get rid of the student loan socialization? Because that was in there. It has nothing to do with health care, and that was in there. Big government grab of the student loan industry. At the end of the day, at least we are getting something conservative out of him. And he's holding some of these establishment Republicans like Ryan feet to the fire. They're going to have to do something conservative with him in there. He's going to force them to. If we get a few wins, it was better than having Hillary.
Right. All right, Geoff, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it.
No, my pleasure, Jeremy.
All right.
Very much so.
I certainly hope you enjoyed this episode of Kitchen Table Politics. Please give us a follow on Twitter at KTPOLS. That's KT Polls. And check out our website, ktpolitics.com. We'll see you next time.